Stefon Diggs, I want you to give me a realistic best or worst case scenario for the way this plays out, because there's been mixed opinions and reviews. They got a number one receiver, but he's expensive, he's hurt, he's old, he blah, 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 blah. So best and worst case scenarios in your mind for this.
The one topper I would say to Stefon Diggs would be Stefon Diggs, any port in a storm. And I totally believe that. So what's the best case scenario for 2025? I would say 72 catches, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns. That's your best case scenario. Worst case, not ready until Columbus Day, 47 catches, not very, not happy with the situation. The offense stagnates, and the team's looking for a trap door, and that's worst case. I would imagine that is 10% likelihood of the best, 10% of the worst. And then I think that, do you think 60 catches is a reasonable amount to expect from a guy who annually puts up 1,000 and was on pace for 94 and
yes
1,100 last year?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean he's I don't know how much heat's going to be taken off of him with the other wide receivers. He's going to be the focal point, but still, nonetheless, Tom, I agree with you. I think that's a realistic number. Yeah, I'm trying to connect the dots here with the with the signing with Stefon Diggs, and I've always kind of maintained this kind of attitude that I think it's a lot of people reported that maybe Drake Maye doesn't want to, or they're worried about Drake Maye dealing with diva wide receivers, and I've kind of tried to frame it as I think it's more about Josh McDaniels not wanting to deal with diva wide receivers, and it's interesting to find out that Josh McDaniels' brother Ben McDaniels was a wide receivers coach for the Texans last year. Mm-hmm. So, look, obviously those two have talked and have traded notes, and so it feels as if Josh McDaniels is on board with this. Do you think? I mean, how important do you think it was that Josh McDaniels was okay and comfortable with the signing of Stefon Diggs, not just worrying about the development of a young quarterback?
It's a great question, and I think that Josh, in the position that he's in, and just in conversations that I had with him prior, where he's an employee and he gets that. He is here to serve the same way Elliot Wolf is here to serve the vision of Mike Vrabel. So I'm sure that it's a respectful conversation that goes on, but if you're going to have an employee under you as a manager who is talented, yes, you're going to ask that manager, here's what we're going to do. You're going to be okay with that. But in the end, you as the CEO, Vrabel, is going to do what's best for the team. So I can't imagine that in his first year with Mike, Josh would say, I can't do it. Maybe the team would have preferred, and certainly did prefer, in the early stages of free agency, to get as many guys who fit their on-field, off-field, sideline etiquette, all the boxes checked in all of those departments. But Diggs isn't that, but he's everything you'd want on the field, on the sideline, maybe not, certainly in the weight room and in the training room. And again, it's more of a, hey, this guy can be a pain in the ass, as opposed to, hey, this guy's going to be out until 4 a.m. and you never know what you're going to read in the paper the next day. He's not that. And that's a big difference, Teddy, isn't it, from when we were growing up?
Oh, yeah.
We were growing up. When you talked about guys who were problems, it was like anything could happen. Diggs is just a pain sometimes. And one would think that at 32, Fitzy, if you're there, Fitz?
I am indeed.
Okay.
Listening the whole time, my guy.
Is this thing on?
One would think, Fitzy, is that at 32, having worked with Josh Allen and kind of shot his way out of town, that maybe light dawns on Marblehead and he says, you know what? I'll go there and it'll be good. It'll be fun. He's a good player. He could be part of something good. Who knows, though? It could be closer to the worst case. Who knows?
Yeah, it could go either way, honestly, Tommy. And I understand that as well. And obviously the Patriots were desperate enough and needy enough at wide receiver 1 and target 1 for Drake to take a chance on him. And the interesting thing was, it wasn't a 1-year deal where he could come in for 18, 20, 25, whatever, prove it, and then go and get that final big deal. The Patriots gave him a pretty sizable deal, or at least a good guarantee, with $26 million, which tells me that they're not afraid of the knee. They're not afraid of his behavior. and they're not afraid of the value that he may have off the field, and that's my big thing. Are you with me in that part of the reason why he was brought in was the benefit of him going into that wide receiver room and telling the rest of these guys, like, all y'all are going to have to try to find a way to fight me and beat me for target number one, because Drake and Josh are going to look my way, and you guys are going to have to basically be better than me, so good luck. I think that's going to be iron sharpening iron, Tom.
Iron sharpening talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yes. I think that it helps having him there, but I don't think these guys, aside from Kendrick Bourne and to an extent Demario Douglas, in case Sean Booty, but I don't think that the Polk and Bakers need to even have any level of deference shown them. If I'm Stefon Diggs and I've done what I've done in the league, and they all know who I am, and I'm sure that they all would feel that way, I'm looking at him and going, my God, this guy has done everything in this league. He's had the contracts. He's had the successes. I'm going to watch him and see how I can play like that. So what would you rather have in that group? And Ted, you can speak to this maybe, because I don't, people say in the room. I don't know what all these meeting rooms look like, but when you have these tiny little cliques for each position, would you rather have 5 guys who are grab-assing around and think they're really good, or one guy who's a dink and really wants to be excellent? I mean, whether it's Jerry Rice or Larry Bird or Tom Brady, you need dinks.
You need dinks, Andy.
Oh, did you have dinks in you? Were you the dink in the room?
Yeah,
Who was the dink?
Who
was the dink in the linebacker room?
We've had some dinks,
but a good dink.
Mike Vrabel was a dink.
Willie McGinnis was kind of a dink, right?
It was, yeah. There's another way to say, yeah.
All right, we don't need to say that on here.
But yes, your point is well taken, Tom.
Tom Curran, WEEI Afternoons here. There's been a lot of speculation, but is it safe to say that this signing is another step towards that idea that they wanted to be game ready before they got to the draft, so they could just let the draft come to them? It checks off another box on their to-do list.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. They could have waited. They could have played this out. They could have said, okay, we'll see what we get on draft day. Maybe it's Travis Hunter. Maybe we do something to get Ted McMillan. But then you're running the risk of now the next guy up on the free agent list is Keenan Allen. And he really isn't Diggs even at his best. And I love Keenan Allen. So why not just do it if you can do it? And again, it's the story I wrote earlier this week, and I'm sure you discussed it a bit, was the notion the Patriots are cheap. And really the genesis of that was they have to spend their money. Their roster is so bad. Players don't want to come here, and they've drafted so poorly that they have so much money to spend that they're, keeping Milton Williams on the line to offer him more money than the Panthers. They're writing, as Jason Light from Tampa said, blank checks to Chris Godwin. They're re-signing Christian Barmore, Kyle Duggar, Mike Onwenu, Ramondre Stevenson to absurd contracts last year. They're giving Robert Spillane $16 million and Carlton Davis $20 million a year. They are quite plainly in a position where they have to be spendthrifts. So to me, you're looking at Diggs, you're like, well, if we miss out on him, where are we going to spend this money we have to spend? It's budgeted. You've got to spend it. So it does make a lot of sense to do it before the draft for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, that has to be a huge relief for them, Tom. But I'm curious. I'm about what the Giants are going to do at 3, and you have Russell Wilson going to the Giants. You have Jameis Winston going to the Giants. But I don't know if that, all of a sudden means that they're not going to take a quarterback at number 3. And I'm hoping like heck that they will consider that so that, a great player can fall to the Patriots at 4, either being Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Just what do you make of the Giants situation? Do you think the contracts they gave to Russell Wilson means that they're out of the quarterback market, or does that not even kind of come into your mind what they're doing?
I think they could still go quarterback, but everybody around here should be a massive Shedeur Sanders fan and hoping that he has an incredible, pre-draft run-up to the draft, so that whether it's Cleveland or the Giants, one of those teams says, you know what, we can't really live without this guy. He's sitting right there. But in talking to Billy O'Brien on our podcast yesterday, what would you? It's so hard to pass on Abdul Carter. So if he's sitting there and you're Cleveland, or if he's sitting there and you're Giants, you're going to take him. And then if you're looking at, do I take Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders? Which player was the better player on that team? It was Travis Hunter. So it's really the Patriots' hopes of having either Carter or Hunter took a mighty blow yesterday with the Russell Wilson signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. Tom, as on the wide receiver front, though, last question real quick. Are the Patriots done trying to sign veteran wide receivers? Anyone else out there you've heard anything about them maybe bringing in or taking a flyer on, or are we good?
I'm sure that they would continue to look at the market. They might start to look at the trade market as well. I mean, they have guys who just, in that room, what would you look at as your top three wideouts? It would be Booty, Diggs, DeMario Douglas, and Kendrick Bourne kind of in there, I guess. So that's still not anything that's going to terrify anyone. So I think that they would still stay in the market. Hopefully we'll have a better idea next week when I talk to you guys on Thursday after the owners' meeting.
Real quick, Tom, so you don't consider Matt Collins a top 4 receiver here?
I'm sorry. I should have kept him in there. Yeah, I mean, 57 catches for Josh a couple of years ago in Las Vegas. You're exactly right. Yeah, he's probably going to be. I mean, I like Booty. I think he's a good player. I think that he's what you're looking for in terms of competitiveness and hands and body control. A little immature, but I wouldn't move on from him necessarily either. But Matt Collins, I think, will definitely have a role. The dude's 6'4". I didn't realize he was that huge, and he's the only guy over 6'1" in the room.
All right, Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. I appreciate you joining us. I hope you enjoyed the drive-by free zone of WEEI Afternoons more than those bullies on the midday.
He mutters. Keith always mutters something at the end.
Yes, he does.
And then changes the subject.
Yes, he does. You're on to him, though.
He's a mutterer.
He's a mutter. There's a little tone to it, a little muttering in the background there. But
mutter.